guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Well, hello, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend holiday. Kevin Brockway with us, as always, from CNHI. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you? Yeah, it was quite the holiday weekend, right? It was a little nippy out, but nice to get out and about. And obviously, Indy 500 weekend, huge. Helio Castroneves, congratulations to him. So lively in the region for sure, and good to see that event back in terms of it not necessarily being full capacity, but it being a rather large capacity event in the state, kind of a sign of things getting back to normal a little bit.
Well, 135,000 people, the largest spectator event since COVID hit us, and it seemed to go off pretty well. It was absolutely received very well by the fans. I mean, it was just a glorious sight to see that. But watching that race, it was fun. It was a fun race to watch. And what you could, I don't know if you could script an ending other than it being Daly or an Indiana guy. Other than that, I don't think you could script an ending to where you have a Helio Castroneves, who is no one probably gave him much of a chance to win his fourth. He's with a team that's entering their first Indy 500 ever. And just it was just a great ending. It was a fun race to watch too. Sometimes Indy's races aren't always fun to watch. That one was a great race. The crowd loved it. They were, oh my God, they were incredible to have. They were grateful to have that back. And that should be a great sign for fans of whomever you're a fan of coming forth this summer, this fall for football. Man, it's back, baby. We're back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The cooler weather apparently helped the speeds too, right? Because of tires and the way, so you had a fast race too, which was exciting and added to
was it the fastest ever or the second fastest ever?
I don't remember, one or the other.
Yeah, it was, which is amazing. But yeah, you're right. There was concern about that with the temperatures, but they got to where it was just perfect. And man, it was just allowed for a perfect combination on the track.
Yeah, no question. So it was, I think it's good to see, like you said, back to that, normalcy, a huge event, a big event around this region. And you've got to be, really pleased if you're, certainly, someone within the state to see that. And we saw this with the NCAA tournament too, the ability to put on big events in Indiana safely. I think they did a really first-rate job of that. And when you look at the numbers around the state, things are going well. Yeah. Now, if you're an Indiana baseball fan, you're not very happy today, right?
Yeah, I was just going. That's the next thing to talk about. No conference tournaments this year, so everything is turned to selection committee, I guess, and the NCAA tournament. Not only does Indiana not get in, but that was maybe a surprise. But you want to talk about a shock? Louisville does not get in, and that's I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, and I don't know if Louisville was even the first four out. And there were conference tournaments in some, just not the Big Ten. Big Ten chose not to. But here's an interesting thing. A team like Jacksonville was 16-32, and they were a bid stealer because they got an automatic qualifier. Notre Dame up the state, they get in. They host a regional because they won the ACC regular season title. So they're going to be hosting regional up there with Michigan. 3 Big Ten teams. You had Michigan, you had Nebraska, and you had Maryland, which took 2 or 3 of Indiana over the weekend. I don't know if had Indiana taken 2 or 3 in that series. I still don't know. They weren't the first 4 out, or they weren't the next 4 out. So I don't know if that would have really made a difference.
I don't think it would have. Now that you see Louisville didn't make it, they just had when they lost those 5 straight. They lost the last game of a series to Michigan State. Then they lost a four-game series to Ohio State. That really put a crimp in their season. And from that point forward, they were fighting up and down, and they just never could get out of that roller coaster and get it up on a high rise. And a little surprising for it to turn out this way this year for them, but
well, they couldn't hit.
happens.
They couldn't hit. They had issues. Other than Grant Richardson, they just had they just didn't have enough firepower at the plate. I mean, I think that's something that Jeff Mercer's going to have to address. Get some guys in that can hit the baseball, and apparently, not hit the long ball either, which has been a staple of his programs in the past. And when you don't hit the long ball, you have to manufacture runs, and they weren't necessarily great at that either. So, just a down year offensively for the Hoosiers for sure.
Absolutely. A little programming note: we're now been requested to go back to 2 hours, and so we'll be doing 2 hours now. So you'll get to hear Kevin talk even more today. Looking forward to that as he's wearing his U4 Air Force One hat. What actually is that? It's an Adidas hat, isn't it?
No, it's an Adidas hat. Yeah, no, I like this hat. It's not a bad.
Well, it's a good looking hat. I just couldn't read it.
Little look here. Yeah, I didn't want to wear that Mets hat because I got some brushback from some people a couple of weeks ago. But
give me a break.
But
because it looked like crap.
I know. Well, but the Mets are in first place, so there's something to be said for that. 26.
Well, get you a decent hat, man. If they're in first place.
Yeah. No, I mean,
come on, spring a few bucks.
No, I like that hat. I like that Mets hat. But what are you gonna do?
Put it in the museum.
Museum
says that was the fastest ever Indianapolis 500, and this weekend reminded him of the Indianapolis. Got to see some mounted police at the Kentucky Horse Park campground out camping, so good for him. But yeah, man, a great weekend, beautiful weekend. The weather for those couple of days was just incredible. Let's see, on the golf course, there you had the senior PGA, the dude from Germany or wherever. I saw him win that. But other than that, let's see, on NASCAR, stock car racing, Coca-Cola's 600 in Charlotte. I don't know if I've finished that race yet, so I don't know who won that, so they can pop up. I've been trying to watch it, but I haven't been able to complete watching it. So, or is it Kyle Larson won that? That's right. It was Hendricks Motorsports, whatever win. It put them, now they are the all-time winning organization in NASCAR over Petty Motorsports, which has had that since like 1960. So there you go for NASCAR fans. You got that going on. So all kinds of little bit of stuff over the weekend. The fewest cautions ever in a race. Wow. So people were driving carefully. Unusual. Very unusual. It was a Memorial Day weekend, so I hope everyone did have a safe one. It seemed like it was a nice, quiet weekend. Nothing bad happened. Nothing big. No big booms that I recall. Anything that out of the ordinary for you?
Well, if you remember a year ago, right, this weekend, sadly, you had the riots in downtown Indianapolis, and of course, I wrote about Chris Beatty on Friday, and certainly, had a chance to talk to a few of his friends, talk to Laura Overton, who was tremendous. Her recollections of Chris and what a great person he was in terms of just really a gregarious guy and a guy that was about town and about the community, and just sad that he was gone too soon at 38. But, you think about where we were as a country a year ago compared to where we are now, not just with COVID, but with racial strife. We've come a long way in these last 365 days for sure.
Holy cow. Yeah. Last year it was rough in so many different ways. The onset of COVID coming at the same time as all those other things happening. And it was not a good combination, but hopefully we're coming out of all of them. Let's see what's some of the other things that happened over the weekend. I'm trying to remember. There was
NBA playoffs.
Oh, that's what we were going to talk about. I saw a picture of Romeo a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, I've been, being a Nets fan along with a Mets fan, I've been watching obviously the Celtics Nets series pretty closely. And Romeo's he's doing okay. He's holding his own. He's coming off the bench, contributing. He's made a few threes in that series. He blocked Kevin Garnett in one game, which is kind of, they have him on Garnett, which is interesting. I think he's got a future. He's obviously not starting yet, but he's in there and he's contributing. And it looks like Brad Stevens is giving him quite a bit of rope in terms of his playing time and letting him get out in the court and letting him develop. And you can see the signs that he's going to be, if he sticks with it, he's going to be a pretty productive NBA player in the future. That he's going to be a guy that's going to be in the league for a while, and can do a lot of things. And I think it starts too on the defensive end. And listen, that Nets team when Harden, Kyrie and Durant are clicking, can be borderline unguardable. But they did do a good job. The Celtics did in Game 3, holding them to 119, right, while outscoring them 125. And Tatum had a big day, but it's been a good NBA playoff so far as well. This weekend, Nate McMillan, right, the former Pacers coach, couldn't win a playoff game with the Pacers, and he's got 3 wins now. He's on the verge of closing out that series with the Knicks.
I'm watching a clip right now, and we'll talk more about this when Mike DeCourcy joins us. What's going on with people at NBA games right now? They've just become moronic. I was thinking it was just partly. I was thinking it was these entitled D-bags, but then now I'm watching a clip right now of a fan running onto the court during the Wizards Game 4 win over Philadelphia last night, and it's just some dude running onto the floor as an African-American guy just jumping up and hitting the backboard and during the game, but a security guard did a hell of a job. He must have saw him coming because he puts on a perfect leg tackle, and it is great. You talk about pinpoint perfect tackle. It is around the legs. Boom, the guy goes down. But what's up with this? We're going to talk to Mike DeCourcy about this too when we come back. But what the crap, man? This is ridiculous. It's
I think in some of these Northeast cities, Boston, Washington, New York. You saw what happened with Trae Young. He got spit on. You saw what happened with, I guess, in the Nets Celtics series, they threw a water bottle. No, it's a plastic water bottle, but it's still, can be dangerous. And you just, you got to be better than that as a person. But you have these rowdy fans. Some of them are immature, and some of them are, angry if their team loses. In the case of, I think, the Celtics Nets, it was like that anger. But you got to be. Kevin Durant had some pretty good comments after that Game 4, like just really kind of dressing these people down, and basically saying, "Hey, we're not animals in the circus here. We're human beings. We're regular players. We're out there." Could you recall anything ever happening in Assembly Hall in terms of fan behavior?
Well,
throwing things, people going out on the court.
You can ask John Calipari that. I think he has a different.
Yeah, that's right. Storming.
But no, absolutely not. First of all, you had Bob Knight on the sidelines. No one would dare do that. He would knock the crap out of them, probably, or he would knock the crap out of them. Period. So you got that. Then most of Indiana's fans they're just basketball fans other than students. And I don't think a student's going to be that ignorant because you're probably looking at a expulsion or whatever from school if you do something like that. So definitely nothing in my memory, and that goes back quite a bit. But no, I can't imagine seeing that. But yeah, we'll talk more about that when we come back. Mike DeCourcy, the great Mike DeCourcy, joins us here on Indiana Sports Beat as soon as we return.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Hello, Mr. Mike.
What's going on?
We're talking about dumb butt fans. What's going on with people all of a sudden?
Jeez.
Fan behavior.
Unbelievable what they're doing.
Just nuts.
Crazy.
The guy last night was just being a goof, but you're going to get hurt, man.
I think alcohol plays a big part of that. But I think that plus, the pent up, year and a half of everybody being stuck in their houses and such.
I thought it was always just stupid white people, but this last one was actually an African-American gentleman, which I have never seen that ever. I've never seen that I can recall like an African-American person doing something like that. It always just seems like a white person. Seriously, think about it. They're like, hey, watch this. But this security guard, I don't know if you saw the video, he makes a pinpoint perfect leg tackle. Boom, around the feet. Bam, that guy goes down.
Don't mess with those security guards.
I guarantee you they're being taught to tackle now. They have to be.
Oh, what you do is you go and you recruit all the guys who played high school football.
Well, that's
so you get the streakers a lot in the Premier League, right? In Britain, like they run out, yeah.
It doesn't happen that much, but it happens. You get on the field, and it's and the soccer players aren't trained to tackle those guys. Reach in with their feet and pull them up. But I remember one time somebody ran on the field and James Harrison put the guy down like he was Tom Brady. I mean, he just.
Oh yeah, I was like, that was a bad mistake by that guy.
Yes.
That was not that long ago either.
10 years ago, maybe a little
Was
less.
it that long?
Well, maybe not quite that long. It was in. I'll have to look that up, see when that was.
But ever since the Monica Seles thing, though, which is the only time I can recall something happening, but that was a whole different scenario. That guy that's what he was going to do. But the rest of this is just silliness. But
coming back. Restaurants has multiple locations and something for everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this post-holiday Tuesday. I hope you had a relaxing one. Mike DeCourcy joins us now from the Big Ten Network, from Fox, and most importantly, the Sporting News. Michael, how was your weekend, first of all?
Never long enough, right?
Does anyone call you Michael?
For much longer.
I'm calling you Michael like I'm your father.
I could have used a few more days, but it was good. Unfortunately, the weather was not cooperative, but it was nice to kick back a few days. Would have liked to have seen some Penguins hockey, but got a chance to write about Christian Pulisic of Hershey, Pennsylvania, playing for Chelsea Champions League final, and wrote about that. The first U.S. men's national team player to play in the Champions League final, and obviously the first to win it, and played an important role. Nearly scored a goal. That would have been nice if he had, but was an important player regardless, and got a chance to hold up the trophy. Got a chance to write about that, and I tweeted that this morning. And one of the interesting things about that, what I wrote about, was that as he was walking on to the podium to accept his medal and then ultimately help lift the trophy, he was wearing like a sweater tied around his neck. And I thought that was really odd. Players don't do that. They don't go grab their warm-ups and then go out. They just walk up. They're too busy celebrating. But he had a sweater tied around his neck and couldn't figure it out until later on. Someone shot it from behind. It was a U.S. soccer sweatshirt. And when he got his chance to lift the trophy with his parents, he wanted to make sure he was wearing a U.S. soccer sweatshirt so that you could make that connection. The Champions League and was in his hands, and the U.S. soccer crest was on his chest. And I thought that was a really nice moment for U.S. soccer to have that connection made. We've come a long way in 32 years to be able to have a player do that.
Yeah, how important is that, Mike, for U.S. soccer? Because we know the connotations that have gone along with that. But to have a player on that stage, on that level, it doesn't bring the team, but it certainly shows that the players are there. That just it's not been brought into fruition just yet, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's important to remember that the U.S. failure in 2018 was a significant one to miss the opportunity to qualify. Christian was one of the most effective players in that campaign, even though he was only 18 years old. He did a really nice job, and he scored the only goal in Trinidad when the U.S. lost 2-1. He brought the U.S. back to tie that game, which is the result they needed to qualify. And the group of players that will try to qualify for next year's World Cup are mostly of his age group, of his generation. We just had a bad group from 23, 24 years old to 30, 31. Just that group was not a great group. It just happened. But 32 years ago, 1989, we had not qualified for the World Cup in 40 years. And Paul Caligiuri scored a goal in Trinidad and won that game. They made the 90 World Cup, then they made the next 7 in a row and gradually built up to where you could have a player who was an essential player for a Champions League winner. And that was unheard of 30 years ago. 30 years in that sport's history is a very brief time. I mean, people have been playing soccer at that level for 100, 120 years. Liverpool, my team, was founded, I think, in 1892. That's more than 120 years. That shows how long this has been going on. And the U.S. has really been a part of it for only 30 of that. So to be able to have Christian go up and lift that trophy and be an important part of why they won it, scored a goal in the semifinals, created the clinching goal in the semifinals, created a lot of danger and occupied Manchester City's defenders over the last 25, 30 minutes of the final. I just don't. I think people can overlook how important that is and how far a trip we've traveled just because of one slip in 2018. People want to fixate on the negative, but not ever fixate on the development that's gotten U.S. men's soccer to this place.
Why, Kevin, I wanted to get you in here too, but why was the U.S. so slow to, because the United States is the epitome of sports, in our mind at least. But why were they so slow? Is it because we just had so many others that were being played or invented here? But to grasp onto soccer, I know when I was growing up, it was deemed as a sissy sport, but that was only because, whoa, what the hell is going on? And to see the athletic, the speed, how a real game is played changed like that. And it brought an interest that my daughter played soccer, but it brought an interest that now I'll continue to be able to watch soccer and enjoy it on certain levels. But America, U.S., why just would not grasp onto that sport?
Yeah, I think there's an interesting book for someone, and maybe it's even been written about what happened in the 20s and 30s when the U.S. went one way and the rest of the world went the other. The U.S. Decided to go in a direction opposite of every other country in the world with baseball, which of course was well established in the early 1900s. But then later on, when American football came about and basketball started to get bigger, things just that's the direction they went. And I think there's probably some interesting stories about why that happened. But the definitive truth is that it happened. And there are young people who grew up much after me who don't understand how dead it was. Your assertion about the sissy sport, that it was something because of the flopping, the reality was, before that, Jim, when you couldn't see it, it was dismissed. You didn't see it here. It was never on television. World Cup wasn't on TV. Maybe the final. There were no live weekly games like you see now. There was no league from 1984 to 1996. We had no major pro league. I mean, that's a huge chunk of my life, that there was literally no high level pro league. And before that, when the North American Soccer League was in place, it was never on television. I remember when I was probably 17 or 18, final was on. But that was it. I mean, you're not going to convert a group of sports fans into your sport if the game's never on television. That's why this past, starting with that World Cup in 1990, it started to, the seeds were planted, and it being such a great sport. One of the regrets I have is that I didn't play the sport as a kid, because it's such a great sport to stay in shape with. It's such an active, demanding sport that it's really a great sport for kids to play, as opposed to, when I played baseball, a lot of standing around and not much activity. So people realized that there was a value in that. And so it started to grow as a youth sport. And then probably around 2000, 2001, it started to flood our televisions, and people could start to appreciate what a magnificent sport it really is. And that's the generation that's grown up today with soccer ubiquitous on their televisions. And they appreciate that, but maybe don't always appreciate how far it had to come for it to be there.
Or Mike, you could be, the chubby kid like me and play goalie. That's what I did. I was the guy that didn't. I was the guy that didn't run around. But it's interesting because I grew up in soccer in the 80s, and that was my sport. And the one interesting thing is you talk about pro leagues, and if you remember the indoor soccer craze, right, in the 80s, when you had that league, and they kind of to boost scoring, to make it more exciting and palatable for American fans, because I think that was an issue too. Is like, who wants to sit through a 1-0 game? So you had this game that was kind of like borderline hockey, and you had the big, and I actually remember playing indoor soccer too in the 1980s at a local field house. And it was kind of cool as a goalkeeper for that, because you could give up a goal in indoor soccer and just rub it off, because you knew it was going to be a 5-2, a 5-3 game. It wasn't going to be a 1-0 game, and it wasn't going to be the end of the world. So I kind of like that. The ball came in a little quicker and so forth. But it didn't last, obviously, the way people thought it might in America, indoor soccer. But those were fun. I remember the New York Arrows. They had with Shep Messing and a guy named Jungle, who was a really good goal scorer back then. And it caught out a little bit after the NASL, but then we were in the obviously in the wilderness for a number of years before MLS came along.
Yeah, this is a true story. I'll tell real quickly. The only soccer game I ever played in was at halftime of a Pittsburgh Spirit game. It was a media game. I don't know how many of us, they got 6 or 7 on each side, and they had us play a media game. It was one of the most exhausting things I've ever done, and the game couldn't have been more than 10 minutes because of halftime. And 2, I scored the only goal in the game. Guy set in a cross. I stuck out my left foot. It went in the goal. So I retired from soccer with a 100% strike rate. Goal! It was a blast, but that was that's how far we've come. The MISL, Major Indoor Soccer League, wasn't exactly soccer as you know it, but it was a fun thing. I'm really excited by where we're going. It's just that it's going to be, there's a lot of pressure on this group to qualify for Qatar for 2022, and they're very young, and it's not going to be easy, because they're going to play, instead of the usual 2-match window in each window, because it's compressed because of the pandemic. We would have been well into World Cup qualifying by now if it weren't for that. They're going to start in September, and they're going to play 3 matches in almost every window. So you got to be deeper, you got to be fitter. And you're going to have to be really sharp in each window, and you're going to have to be healthy too. You don't want to, if Christian were to get hurt for a window, that would be really devastating. You could possibly lose 3 games because he's not there, something like that. So I'm hopeful that the depth that they have will be helpful to them, as opposed to some of the other countries that are underrated in the region, like Costa Rica, like Honduras. They're really good, but do they have enough depth to withstand that 3 matches in each window? I think that's going to be one of the keys to whether the United States makes it to Qatar in 2022.
I commented on after Indiana lost to Marshall in the men's soccer 1-0. there were some comments on the YouTube, but they were mainly from Marshall people. But I talked about how 29 of the 30 goals and basically 90% of the minutes played were by foreign players for that team. And I don't see how that does anything to help American soccer, because now you're bringing people in to beat the Americans, which competition that does help. But I don't see how that did anything. I called that initially a bought title, but should be a brought in title. But it just I don't see that as a positive thing for college soccer to elevate the game. But I don't want it to be sour grapes or appear that way. When I look at the stats, the numbers, all of this, everything they did was by players that they brought in from another country. And I'm like, yeah, what's that? What's that do?
Well, I think that one of the obstacles that a Marshall would have, though, is you're playing in a lesser conference. You're playing, Marshall is a fine university, but it's, would you, if you were offered a scholarship, if you were a kid playing an American club or American high school, and you were offered a scholarship by Indiana, Stanford, UCLA, or Marshall, where would you go? It would certainly have a tough uphill battle if you're Marshall. So, I mean, that's the thing that places like that have been able to be successful with international players. And I look, as long as they're going to college like everybody else, that's the game. I mean, when UCLA made the Final Four with Alfred Aboya and Luke Richard and Mbah Moute, and they also had Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook, but those guys were important players. As long as they're college kids like everybody else, I'm fine with it. And if the international players for Marshall prove to be better, your job is to try to raise your level to match them, to meet them, to beat them. And I think that, Indiana came very close to doing that with a largely U.S. based roster. They just, they gave up a tough goal late and were unable to lead with a title.
And then let's see if you can stick around when we come back. Also,
yes.
The men did not qualify for the 3-on-3 basketball Olympic portion. And then something else. There is I don't know what to call them, like a fan group that has a guy that's running for the board of trustees. I'm like, is that a positive thing? Because they're using their platform to, I don't know. We'll talk about it. But back with more Indiana Sports Beat, the great Michael DeCourcy and Kevin Brockway on with us right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxed
fan group running for Indiana Board of Trustees?
Yeah. It's the Hoosier, the Hoosier Hysterics, those two guys.
Oh, jeez.
Well, they're running one of those guys for the Board of Trustees. And they're using that platform that they've built up with all these guys to do that. And I think it's just because they're a bunch of goofs. And it's just like they're attention whores. And I'm like, dude.
Are they based in LA or something like that, right?
Yes.
He's got a lot of money, though, right? So that's
one guy does. The other guy, I have no idea because you don't hear. The other guy is supposedly an actor. Well, that's the guy that they're running for Board of Trustees.
And Hoosier Hysterics, what was the thing with Oladipo, right? They went to Oladipo's thing and they donated $5,000, and that's why Archie did all the podcasts.
Donate shit. They wrote a check to go to the camp.
They basically bought Archie's access, Well, what are you going to do?
But yeah, they get, and since then, Indiana's, they get people on. They get treated like they're a media member now, which, how does that not change that? I've never understood this because they're connected to Peegs and they recruit directly to players while they're being recruited. They just do so many things through a credentialed site. I'm like, how does that happen? And now this, I'm like, and
you realize that's
Indiana will provide them with people.
That's like that. You realize that's like an NCAA violation. There was like a Florida site that got in hot water about that 10 years ago.
Well, Indiana loves
Like
them.
you can't, like if you work for a media site, you can't directly recruit,
Well, they don't work for them. They just carry their.
No, I mean you can if there's evidence, yeah.
I
If you're a
understand.
rival
That's why I
site,
never understood
Yeah.
why you would do that or why that would be allowed.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about them per se. But that I don't have to name them. They can
It is
figure
what
it
it
out.
is.
Whether you're looking for a new or a used vehicle, Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month? Or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. Man, it's going to be tough keeping those days straight this week. I've had to write that down and stare at it. I can't believe I got it right so far. I mentioned the 3-on-3 Olympic. They have a 3-on-3 team now. I guess I realized that, but the United States won't be a part of it though. For only the first time ever in a men's basketball event, they are not qualifying. Robbie Hummel and some guys didn't make it. Which
let me tell you, that is the most convoluted, messed up, ridiculous. And FIBA, you go back to 1972 if you're as old as me, and if you've never seen the documentary 3 Seconds, I can't remember what 3 Seconds from Glory or something like that HBO did on the 1972 gold medal basketball final. FIBA is a joke, but here's how ridiculous this is, okay? 3 teams, first of all, Japan automatically qualifies as the host. Absolutely, that's how it works in Olympics, and that's cool. Okay. And then 3 teams make it in based on their world ranking. Well, the number 2 ranked team in the world is the United States. So why are they not qualified? I don't know. It's the way they calculated it. They calculated it based on, I believe based on the number of players, individual players a country has in the top 100, rather than on the team ranking. So the number 2 team in the world doesn't qualify automatically. You know who gets in? Serbia, which is ranked number 15. Number 15 qualified automatically for the Olympics, and number 2 had to go through an elimination in this tournament that they just had in Austria. Okay, so then here's how it works: you get 10 minutes. That's how long the game is. And whoever gets to 21 first or has the most points at the end of 10 minutes wins. So you get 10 minutes to decide whether or not you're still in the Olympics once they get to the quarterfinals. And then you play in the semifinals. And if you win your semifinal game, you're automatically in. They had three spots available for like 20 teams. Why they need such a small field, I don't know, because the games, like I said, only last 10 minutes. But they played against Belgium, the number 4 ranked team in the world. So in the quarterfinals, they had the number 2 team had to play the number 4 team. Belgium played great. U.S. did not play well. Belgium hit a bunch of what would in ordinary basketball be 3-pointers. They're 2-pointers in 3x3, and they hit a bunch of them. I don't remember the exact number, but at least 3 or 4, and that won the game. And the U.S. loses, and it's like, no, it can't be over. This is the second best team in the world, but apparently it is over. And they won't go. It's an atrocious device, and it's not unusual for FIBA, which is one of the worst sporting organizations on the planet.
Well, and the Olympics, all of it seems like all of international sports are always under a cloud of someone being bribed, just nonstop. It's just like the Olympics is everybody's chance to get their suitcases full of cash.
Yeah, I'm not alleging any corruption. I'm just saying that I think that they wanted to have a tournament in which the U.S. was not a favorite. I think they want that because you see what happens with the women. I think the women have won the last 6 or 7 gold medals. The U.S. have won every one going back to 2008 when the Redeem team came in. So I think they wanted a tournament where the U.S. Had a hard time getting in and are not at all disappointed to see them not get in. And like I said, if the U.S. was number 15 in the world and then lost in the quarters, like, okay, they didn't win. They didn't make it. But to be the number 2 team in the country, to be the reigning World Cup champions, and his teammates were the World Cup champions in 2019, and that didn't get them in. But being the 15th ranked team in FIBA 3x3 got Serbia in. That's not a legitimate competition. I'm sorry.
Kevin.
Yeah, and you feel bad for a guy, Robbie Hummel, obviously, who is a Purdue guy, and I think Kenyon Barry was on that team too.
Yeah, Kenyon ended up getting hurt before the tournament, and that probably affected them because they didn't shoot well. And Kenyon would have been the guy who was out there sticking those threes.
Yeah, no question. Rick Barry's kid, who I covered at Florida, who does the underhand free throws like Rick also, but that's another side. But we were talking earlier in the show off air a little bit about fan behavior. We saw it with the NBA playoffs this weekend, and we were discussing some humorous antics even in the Premier League with streaking and so forth. But what's going on with fans nowadays, Mike? What do you think?
I think that there's an element of reaction to the civil rights protests. I think there's an element of that. One can assume that there is. I think part of it is being pent up for a year and change and not being able to go to sporting events. It's not just the fan behavior, bad behavior relative to the athletes on the field, which is awful and the worst of what we get. But there's also been some terrible fan behavior in the stands amongst each other. We've seen a lot of fight type situations picked up and on cell phone videos and distributed on social media. We've seen a fair amount of that. Again, for only really being back in the arena for a month or so, we've seen some pretty nasty stuff. I was delighted at the NCAA basketball events that I attended, and which were reasonably well attended by fans. I mean, obviously not capacity crowds, and you were there too, Kevin. There were no incidents at all relative to each other, relative to the fans, to the athletes on the field, on the floor. We had no problems at all. And we were just talking about the NCAA men's soccer tournament. They had no incidents at all. They had a lot of fans down in North Carolina. People seem to really enjoy it. So it's a shame that it's happening, and it's really a shame when it involves antipathy toward the competitors. That's the worst of it, and that's got to stop. And I'm not sure what I'm not sure what the repercussions should be, other than the bannings that we've seen of the particular fans that have done these incidents, have been responsible for these incidents. I'm not sure what you can do to them beyond banning them. Although I do know that in one case, I believe in the Boston case, one of them is being criminally prosecuted. So that might be a warning to those who think it's funny or cool to throw water bottles or popcorn or whatever. There was a spitting incident. Those kinds of things, I think making them criminal is probably a good step, because it'll cause those who maybe think about it in the future to well, I'm not just going to be banned. I might wind up with a police record.
Yeah, I think they have to, unfortunately, that's the next step, because that's the only thing that's going to start to deter people, because a trespassing charge, not really, it's like getting a ticket. And they've got to keep the health and the safety of these guys, especially you're talking guys that are making millions of dollars that this is a corporation. This is the active part of their corporation. So they're definitely going to start making change, which it sucks for the rest of the world, because you got these few morons that starts changing things for everybody else. It starts cutting out access for everybody, which again takes a little piece of what sports are away. They keep chipping away a little bit at it. Of what sports is. I mean, you think way back when you could go up to talk to a guy and that's actually playing and get an autograph and all that. And those instances are becoming less and less just because of these types of situations.
One thing that merits saying is that the people who have tried to defend or tried to mitigate it to an extent, the action against Kyrie Irving by talking about how he stomped on their logo. I mean, let's grow up a little bit here, huh? I mean, come on. If you don't want the logo to be walked on, don't put it on the floor. That's a good way of putting it. That's a ridiculous response to what, he could have been seriously injured. Fortunately, he wasn't. But there's when objects are thrown at people, whether they're athletes or not, there's always the potential for a significant injury just by a fluke. Maybe it hits him in the eye and damages his eye, something like that. So there's no equivalence here and no justification. You don't like that he walked on the logo, whatever. But to even put it in a sentence with a water bottle thrown in his direction that could have significantly injured him is ludicrous.
Mike, we've seen that, I think I remember 20 years ago, the Star incident with Terrell Owens. That's usually best policed by the competitors on the field, right?
Yes.
That's how you handle it. The Celtics, next time Kyrie goes in the lane, you give him a little, maybe elbow to the chops as he's going to the basket or something like that. That's how you handle it more than obviously, that. But what about, here's something though, you talk about college sports and in the college realm, rushing the court. The SEC has a rule, right? And certainly John, and I've said this many times on the air and Jim disagrees with me, but John Calipari is not coming back to Assembly Hall because of what happened in 2012. What happened with them rushing the court? I'm convinced of that. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, it's supposedly after the players come off the court, but it still creates a dangerous situation potentially if the players don't get off the court in time. What are your thoughts? I mean, should we eradicate that from the game, or is it just simply good for TV?
I get yelled at a lot because of my stance on this, but I think that when you buy a ticket to a game, and I am someone, people say, well, you're a sports writer, you get in free, all that. Yeah, I get in free to the games I'm working, but I go to a lot of sporting events for which I pay full freight to get in. I've gone to Pacers games here in Indy. I've gone to Reds games. My wife loves the Reds. We go to the Reds. When I'm back in Pittsburgh, has been a while, obviously, but I went to a game in the 2019 season to see the Steelers. We've been to see the Penguins on numerous occasions. So I pay to watch sporting events and love it and am glad to do it. And when I pay, I have the right to my seat and to celebrate and enjoy myself within the bounds of good taste as much as I want. And usually a little bit after the buzzer or final whistle or whatever if I want. And then ultimately, if you've been there too long, they say, hey, it's time to leave. We got to clean this place up. But you're entitled to that. And that's what you're entitled to. You're not entitled to be on the playing surface. Your ticket does not buy you that. And it's just as much fun. Look, I've been in the arena for big wins by the teams that I care about. And it's just as much fun to celebrate there at your seat as it is to jump on the floor. The jump on the floor thing is a cliche that people do because everybody else does. But if the teams that in the SEC, for instance, I mean, at Kentucky, I don't think there's been a court rushing in forever. Do you think they're not having fun on the way to the 2012 NCAA championship with Anthony Davis dunking and Marcus Teague setting guys up and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist blocking shots? They're having a blast. No one rushes the court at the Final Four except the players. But I tell you what, the people who win the championship, you think Baylor wasn't happy? You think the people, you saw them, the people in the stands at Lucas Oil Stadium, there were a lot of green fans there, a lot of green and gold colored fans, and they were ecstatic because their team won a championship. They did not need to be on the floor to celebrate that championship. I don't buy that it's a necessity or a value to college athletics. I think it's dangerous. And again, you're not entitled to that. You're entitled to celebrate with your friends and fans and family and students and whatever at your seat, the one you paid for.
And if you remember in November, right, at a time when the pandemic was probably at its worst in the state of Indiana, you had Notre Dame fans, students rushing the field against Clemson. which I thought was borderline ridiculous. And sure enough, in December we were up to 9,000 cases a day after Notre Dame had an epidemic. During that time, it's like, but a lot of times these schools, they just let the floodgates open. There's no real. It doesn't seem like there's really any security, and I think it's more of a regular season thing than a postseason thing. I get what you're talking about with the NCAA tournament, but it seems like sometimes the schools just kind of let the kids run amok, and there's no real,
I think there's some who believe, well, it's like an advertisement for your school. Look how cool it is to come here and have fun like this. And
yeah,
I just don't think that's. I don't think it's an essential part of the college basketball experience. It's just as much fun to celebrate in your seat. You're just less likely to get on TV. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I don't buy that. There are people who in our business, Kevin and Jim, who when this comes up, and I've written about it and talked about it on television, I get, oh, you're get off my lawn guy or all that. I mean, that's nonsense. Again, I'm all for having fun, but there have been too many instances. There was a young woman many years ago who got paralyzed at a Yale football game, Yale-Harvard. There was a young man who played high school basketball who had a volleyball career at Stanford ruined. He was scheduled to become a volleyball player at Stanford, and he was very seriously injured by a rushing court from a high school game. It's just not necessary. There's just not that much value in it relative to the risk that's out there.
One other coming up now is I've wondered how college athletics is going to survive with people like Mark Emmert at the head of it, that just has had his head in the sand for 15 years. And now the name, image, likeness, and the transfer one time, all that is hitting at once. Well, now you've got Democrats pushing a bill through Congress that will allow athletes to collectively bargain with the schools and the conferences. It's getting worse. How in the world is the NCAA? I don't think they can keep up with what is already in place, and now more is being added to it. They are so catching up from behind as always, but this is like nothing and ever before. I don't know how they stay in front of it because they've never showed the ability to be able to handle any of this anyway. But it is just coming fast and furious, and now this collective bargaining bill is just adding to it.
Yeah, I don't take that very seriously. I think that organizing college athletes would be a very difficult proposition, whether it's allowed or not. I don't think there's anything prohibiting it now. So I'm not sure exactly what the that bill provides that doesn't exist now. I'm not sure that there's any prohibition against it. But the problem is that college athletics is so transitory. I mean, you're there 4 or 5 years. That's it. And then you move on. So to get a group of athletes to agree to that, and then by the time you get that group to vote on it, they're already gone. And then it's just an unending cycle. I don't take it very seriously as a likelihood. I think name, image, likeness will solve a lot of this. And we would already have it in place if it weren't for the NCAA being warned off their January vote by the Justice Department. We'd already have it, so it's going to happen. And I think that advocacy for it and advocacy for specific concepts within name, image, and likeness is fine. But the constant harping about the fact we don't have it is ridiculous because it's in the process of happening. It's just a question of putting it together in a way that all the stakeholders are satisfied. And that does not exclude the athletes. That includes the athletes.
Are people like lawmakers who have no idea what they're doing with college sports, sticking their nose in it just without doing any research, it seems, and passing legislation like this, making things worse without even trying to help? It just seems like they're trying to court future voters, because there's a lot of future voters that are college athletes, more so than the opposite way, because I don't see how this is helping right now. This doesn't help anything.
Yeah, I think Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut has spent the last year and change trying to get his name out there by using this issue. It's an issue. One of the great things about this as an issue for politicians is that it's not divisive. There are proponents of it on both sides of the aisle, and so you can get support for name, image, likeness, and other bills of that type from both sides, from both Democrats and Republicans. So it's kind of it's a low wattage issue. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have a third rail to it. It doesn't. If you touch it, it doesn't. It doesn't end your career or whatever, or it doesn't immediately turn X percentage of the voters against you. And so that's why it's a perfect political issue for Senator Murphy. I haven't seen a single thing that Senator Murphy has said as of yet. He's yet to take a single approach or propose anything that I think is ideal. I think he is grandstanding for attention. I would rather see someone in a position like that get involved in issues that really matter to the voting populace, whatever it might be, whether it's sensible gun legislation or tax reform or economic equality or whatever, or something, depending, on obviously on which side of the aisle you're on. The idea that this is something that the government needs to spend its time on, to me, is preposterous.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, I think the one point with economic equality is interesting, though, because disproportionately, when you look at college basketball athletes and college football athletes, they're African American, and just think what that could mean. That kind of revenue could mean for their families and their future families if they start collecting it at the college level. I mean, there's something to be said for that. That I think, to that point, if they can be, financially compensated, during their college careers, it could be a boost start for a number of families, economically, and families of color.
Mike, I cannot thank you enough. I assume you got to run a busy day or a busy week coming up. What is next for the great Mike DeCourcy?
That's a great question. I'm gonna be working on. There was a podcast that I did last week or a week and a half ago with Rob Doster, formerly of NBC Sports, and with Jeff Goodman of Stadium. And I asked a question about the fact that in terms of the coaching ladder, climbing the ladder in coaching, how rarely that extends to the HBCUs. And this is something I first wrote about more than 2 decades ago, and really nothing has changed in that regard. A guy like Lavelle Moten, tremendous coach at North Carolina Central, who should probably, if he wishes, be at a higher level by now with the success he's had. I don't know exactly how many opportunities he's had, if any, but I think that that's something that we need to see happen more. The great coaches, look, if you can be a great coach in the Big South or the Southern Conference or the Southland or whatever, and you can do well and people will be eager to hire you, why can't that happen in the MEAC or the SWAC? It hasn't really almost at all in the last 25 years, and beyond. And that's something that needs to change. And I'll be looking into that issue in the next week or so.
Look forward to talking to you about that as well. The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox and BTN. Sir, I hope you have a great rest of your short week. That's another great thing about the holiday. It's a short week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kev.
Thank you. Mike DeCourcy join us. We'll be back with more and with Kevin Brockway here on Indiana Sports Beat after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Do you know who I met? And I keep forgetting to say this, and I want to talk about this next. The other night, I met Jeff Sagarin.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it's so funny.
Where was he?
Do you know where the Alley Bar is in Bloomington?
Yeah.
In there. I was in there with
the Alley Bar. You know who I met at the Office Lounge on Friday night?
No.
David Anspaugh.
Really? Does he live here?
Yeah, he says he's lived in Bloomington the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
we talked for like
did you get a number?
15 minutes.
Did you get a
No,
number?
I did not get a number for him. Yeah.
Why?
Because it was just like a casual conversation or whatever. I have Angela Pizzo's number. Well, you
Yeah,
gave me
me
his number.
too. I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's a good one to get on. So I'm gonna call Angelo or get his number from Angelo.
David Anspaugh. Yeah, really nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Golly, all kinds of stuff.
Hey Jim, I told Chronic Hoosier 10:30. Do you want it to be 10:20?
Because he's in a meeting, and so we're gonna.
Yeah.
This first segment is just me and Kevin for sure.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, I know this segment. Do you know when Chronic's coming on? Did he tell you?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
He's in a meeting.
Good to know.
Jeff Sagarin,
Also,
did you ask him about?
Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Did you ask Sagarin about the ratings or no?
About what ratings?
Well, his ratings, the Sagarin ratings. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have him on the show.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, when you were texting about the clip, Jim, were you referring to the Congress thing, or were you referring to the fan behavior?
Anything. Do we have any clips?
Okay, yeah. I've been sending Jonathan things as
about Jeff Mercer.
Yeah. You know what, Jim? You know what else we could talk about is this Naomi Osaka story. Have you been following it?
No, I have not. What happened to her?
She withdrew from the French Open because she does not want to talk to the media. She has an anxiety issue. And now she claims she's taking time away from the court, but she said that because of her mental health, she wanted to play in the French Open without having to do media interviews, and they were going to require her to do so. And because they're requiring her to do media interviews, she said, no, I'm going to skip the tournament. But I guess she's like one of the top-ranked women's tennis players in the world.
I don't think anybody gives a crap about her, to be honest with you. But
coming back.
Well, I think it's more the
Restaurants has
concept
multiple
of like
locations
having
and
to do
something for
media
everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
welcome back on this post-holiday Tuesday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It was pretty relaxing for me. I am not going to lie, man. That was a relaxing weekend. Didn't do much. I hope to go to the race. Oh, the Indianapolis 500. We have not spoken about that a lot, but that was a fun race to watch. It really was. It was the fastest Indy 500 ever, I guess. And a 4-time winner now, joining AJ Foyt, Johnny Rutherford, and Rick Mears as the only 4-time winners. But those 4-time winners all came from the last of those had to be in the 80s, I would think. Those wins of all three of those guys. And that was back when there was a little less international flavor. So for Elio Castroneves to do this, and he had been out of the sport. He lost his ride. He was with a first-time entry team. There was nothing going his way except for, and what a great guy. It was the celebration afterwards was just nonstop with the fans and with the fellow competitors. Pretty unusual. It was a great scene. It was a great scene all the way around to see the people there and how much they appreciated being back in attendance. The people that love that race, they love that race, man. I mean, it is a rite of passion for a lot of people, a lot of Hoosiers especially, but a lot of people from out of state as well.
Yeah, and Elio also doing it at 46, which is continuing that trend, right? Phil Mickelson at 50, the graybeards,
He mentioned it. He mentioned Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. And look at that. I mean, You got guys all in their 40s The 40s is the new 30s.
The new 20s.
Question.
It's the new 20s
you got
and the
guys
50s.
competing and winning. I mean, I was a little surprised. Why didn't Phil Mickelson compete in the senior PGA championship this weekend? That would have been incredible. That would have been absolutely incredible to see him win the PGA and then the week after win the senior PGA.
Yeah.
Why would he not attempt that? Too hard?
Maybe he needed the recovery time. Yeah. So, but I guess Al Unser, right, was the oldest at 48 to do it. So Elio was 2 years short of that. Unlike
Al Unser, not Johnny Rutherford, in my mind.
Yeah. And apparently, Phil Mickelson being the oldest to win a major, Tom Brady being the oldest QB to win a Super Bowl. But yeah, 50's a new 30, man, and 40's a new 20s, and we're all just. I think professional athletes, and I think with advances probably in medical technology, exercise technology, advances, maybe in even supplements or whatever. I just think people are taking better care of themselves, probably.
Oh, absolutely. No crack on AJ Foyt, but if you look at toward the end of his career, even a few NASCAR drivers, Tony Stewart, I'll put in there. You look at the drivers today on whether it's NASCAR or IndyCar, these guys are all in shape. They're probably all about 5'5" to 5'9". They're smaller guys, but they're all in shape because being in those cars for hours, that heat, it takes it out of you, and you have to be in shape. It's a different game. No question. No, yeah. And I think in all sports, when you're talking about there's Chris Lewis, don't underestimate us old farts, right? Yeah, that's we're it is amazing though, but you have these gyms and facilities and all this technology now in exercise science and exercise physiology where you can really live a healthier, more spry, more athletic life into your 40s, 50s, and 60s now, maybe that you couldn't a generation ago. Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun for people to see the guys because they get to see people longer. The guys don't fade away as quickly. But youth also, though, there was a lot of youth. That's the thing. This was youth in Indy 500, Colton Huerta, the American. But there's a lot of youth in that. Guys he's in his third 500 and he's 21 years old. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's it bodes really well for the sport, the next generation of drivers as well. That you've got guys that are definitely on the come like that for sure.
Jimmy Johnson has done triathlons. Yeah, some of those guys really get into it, and he's going to be taking over a car next year, I guess, for Tony Kanaan. I think that's who car he's taking in. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see. What else we talk about? We already talked about the name, image, likeness, and all that.
We both had celebrity brushes this weekend. I'll let you go first. Who you met?
Well, Jeff Sagarin. Actually, it was the end of last week, and I forgot to mention it on Friday. But it was just so funny because older listeners definitely or sports fans know Jeff Sagarin because it was so funny because there was 3 different guys in there and we're all relatively the same age, said the same thing. Man, I couldn't believe it. Every time I'd go to the sports section and open up, what are the Sagarin ratings? What are the Sagarin ratings? That was the thing. He was the first. He was the first to do this. Been here in Bloomington all this time, but he's an MIT graduate. But he was the first to put statistics to work for sporting events. And come up with that rating system that USA Today, I don't know if they still use it, but for a long, long time, the Sagarin ratings was it, man. I don't know. I don't think the NCAA ever used them. They may have. I can't remember.
Yeah. No, I still see the Sagarin ratings around from time to time. And it's interesting that you bumped into him, and I'm sure he had a lot to say. Yeah. So I'm at the office lounge on Friday night, and I bumped into David Anspaugh, the director of Hoosiers, who I guess apparently he told me he's been living in Bloomington the last 6 or 7 years. And of course, Angelo Pizzo's here too. David said that he was talking about the one of the scenes, and apparently them having to, beg some kids from Broad Ripple High School, right, to go into one of the to fill in as extras for one of the scenes for one of the movies. But I'm sure we can talk about Hoosiers all day. I mean, what a great movie.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. And make sure, I corrected. I think I did correct it. It was Al Unser Sr. that had that fourth win. But it is. It's a great movie. And it's funny just to it's a movie that people still don't stop watching. You can't get over. And there's so many people that you run into that were in the movie and this and that. People that you end up knowing. You're like, oh, wow. But I have to get David on here. I've not had him on. Angelo's been on with us several times in the past. But I want to get him on because there's a great story that Angelo told about the studio kind of pushed them. They wanted Burt Reynolds to play the role of the coach. They didn't want Burt Reynolds. So and this is Angelo telling me the story, they decide on the way down, all right, we're going to tank this interview. We're going to make the interview crappy, and so he's not going to want to do it, and which they did, but apparently it was such to the deal that Burt Reynolds wanted David Anspaugh to go outside and fight that they got him so mad in what they were doing. So I look forward to talking to him up and see if he remembers it the same way. Looking forward to that. But and to get his side of stories, because there's always great stories that come out of those things.
We talked about, I remember I talked to Angela about this too, for a story did a couple of months ago about, some of the cast members, about, particular Gene Hackman and Barbara Hershey being a little difficult. But Dennis Hopper apparently was all bought in. He was really, really good. But, talking to David said that he felt that Hackman, for as difficult as he was brilliant and should have probably merited some Oscar consideration as well, along with Dennis, who was, nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Well, apparently Burt Hopper's career and Hackman's career were not going well at that time. They had difficulty getting Dennis Hopper insured for the part because of his problems he was playing, which mirrored the role that he would play with substance abuse, but they did. And so that's probably why he was so bought in, because it was difficult to get him in. Hackman was just Gene Hackman, but he's one of my favorite actors, man. We got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat, going 2 hours from now on. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but they've requested, and we're giving it to you for 2 hours now from this point forth. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxed
Doobie.
What else we could talk about is Athlon preseason All Big Ten. There are a bunch of Indiana guys on it.
Is that the one that had like 10?
Yeah. You see, I did Athlon. I nominated some of them also. But I do Purdue. I don't do Indiana. I think, what's his name does Indiana for – Bozich does Indiana for Athlon.
Rick?
Rick, yeah. And I do Purdue. No, my point on that tennis player was not necessarily like, who cares about the tennis, but the fact that should athletes be required in the pro level to do interviews? That's kind of the bigger issue there.
Yes. They're getting paid to be there.
Yeah. But she's claiming it's bad for her mental health to do issues.
Well, then find a different occupation. Seriously, find a different occupation where you don't have to talk to the media.
Yeah.
That's the bullshit of this culture now. Oh, well, it's bad for me to this or bad for that. Okay, well, then go find something else that's not bad for you.
Yep, exactly.
It's a simple solution. Not catering. You can't cater to every single person who wants their needs catered to, because unfortunately in this world, people just aren't honest.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier situation for you to go someplace else as opposed to us catering to every single little person coming along. Because then everybody's going to want their way the way they want it. And that doesn't work. It's sad, but you know what? Life's sad. Life sucks. Life's not fair. If it was fair, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be a millionaire sitting on a beach. It is what it is.
Or as what's his name used to say, what's in Any Given Sunday, Al Pacino. When you get older in life, things get taken from you. That's a part of life.
All right, coming back.
New or used vehicle, Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month? Or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
How has your week started off after this post-Monday holiday? I got to tell you, that was a good weekend. Relaxing. I can't usually always say that, but
I took a little walk on the Beeline Trail. That was kind of nice on Monday.
You did?
Yeah, a little 3-mile walk, which was nice, and got in the gym a little bit, did some exercising, and helped a friend with some yard work, and yeah, it was good. A little nippy on Saturday. Was kind of a gloomy, nippy day, but other than that, and watched the Nets, split up in Boston Garden. You got playoff basketball going on. You got Major League Baseball going on, and but pretty soon it'll be college football season. And I got this in front of me here, Jim. Preseason All Big Ten from Athlon Magazine. Their magazine will be coming out in the stands, I believe, in late June, early July. Look at Indiana. Mike Penix, first team. Micah McFadden, first team. Tywan Mullen, first team. Charles Campbell, first team. That's 4 first-teamers, the kicker. Ty Freifogel, surprisingly, on the second team.
Yeah, that just blew me up. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but you got Olave. I'm trying to think who else you have. There's another receiver that was pretty good.
Not a tight end, though.
Ty Freifogel, wide receiver. Yeah, Peyton Hendershot, second team tight end. Jalen Williams, third team corner. Devin Matthews, third team safety. The newcomer, DJ Matthews, third team wide receiver and punt returner. And then Caleb Jones, offensive line, fourth team. But a bunch of guys there. And that speaks to player development, because you look at a lot of those guys. Well, certainly Penix was a highly touted recruit, but McFadden, Ty Freifogel, Mullen was a highly touted recruit. But a lot of those guys were under the radar guys that Tom Allen and his staff have developed. So there's something to be said for that.
How surprised were you that Olave came back?
Yeah, very surprised. But he's a guy that, certainly will be a difference maker. I think Garrett Wilson is back too. That might have been the other first teamer. I mean, Ohio State. But Ohio State, the big question will be at the quarterback position. You lose Justin Fields. I know they have good guys behind him, obviously, highly touted recruit, but you never know how those guys are going to react until, the bodies come flying at them. So I think there's some unknowns there. I mean, certainly the unknown for Indiana is can Mike A, start the season on time, which is looking very promising, but B, get through the full season healthy. And if not, can Jack Tuttle give you enough, the way he did certainly in the Wisconsin game, but then you follow that up with a little bit of a disappointing performance in the Ole Miss game and the bowl game, partly because he took a shot to his chops as well. Protecting the quarterback is going to be of paramount importance as always. But I think Indiana's got, and Tom mentioned this in the spring too. I mean, you take a look at the offensive line, even Caleb Jones, Bedford, he's going on his third year starting. You've got Dylan Powell inside. And the newcomer, Zach Carpenter, who's pretty big for a center, right? 6'5", 320, and a former guy at Michigan. I think you've got a good offense. Luke Haggard showed a lot of progress last year. I think you got a pretty good and pretty deep offensive line. That's going to definitely be a strength to this team, and maybe it'll impact the run game as well a little bit too going forward. And I think with that and Dylan McCullough and maybe more of a running back by committee approach, you could have a good run game as well to complement and to take heat off the quarterback a little bit.
Yeah, and everyone is saying, considering that Michael Penix, it's Michael Penix or bust for Indiana, and I don't believe that. I think that that's going to make it better, obviously, but Jack Tuttle is a more than a capable backup. I think he's a more capable backup this year than Peyton Ramsey. I think that he will be able to do more if, let's hope that that's not the case, but if it was, he has more ability than say a Peyton Ramsey. Peyton Ramsey was experienced, but Jack Tuttle is not that far off. I think he showed in the Wisconsin game at Wisconsin what they can do. So was it Wisconsin I'm thinking about?
Yeah, I think the thing with what's interesting though is, I mean, you take a look over the last 2 years, they're 11-2 with Penix as a starter. And without him, I think they're 3-4, 3-5. I think that's kind of the thing about Mike is also, and listen, we've seen some games, Mike struggled certainly in that Maryland game, before he got hurt, even if you remember, he had that terrible first half, but Penn State, he wasn't necessarily great until the end of the game when he made the big plays, but there is a certain it factor about Mike, I think, that kind of rises all boats. And you take a look at Ty Freifogel's numbers with Mike and without Mike. I think that was very telling. So I think there's something to be said for how the team responds to him as well. I think they rallied around Jack in that Wisconsin game, but for whatever reason, it didn't translate into the bowl game. But there were a lot of issues in the bowl game. I think one of the really unspoken issues in the bowl game too was the recovering from COVID and a lot of guys just not being in the same kind of football shape or the same kind of sharpness that you had before that. You remember you had the 2 postponements against Purdue at the end of the season. You really had that momentum, and that momentum was kind of quashed throughout that whole month of December because you had players shuttling in and out of practice too. So it kind of hit them at a bad time right before the bowl game. And then you face an Ole Miss team that, you probably maybe even were a little overconfident, and they might have been dejected, Indiana, about not going to a New Year's Six bowl too. There were a lot of factors, but hopefully this year, you don't have those significant interruptions. You get a full season, and you see how it goes, and guys stay healthy and stay fresh throughout the year.
There you go. Let's see. Tim says Hoosiers Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Rudy, A Christmas Story, Breaking Away, The Fault in Our Stars are all movies filmed in Indiana. I was not aware that Close Encounters of the Third Kind was filmed in Indiana.
That's interesting.
And I've never heard of The Fault in Our Stars. So,
yep.
That's either really old or not very popular. But
do you remember the movie The Judge with Robert Duvall? And what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. was in it. That was supposed to be in Indiana, but they actually filmed it in Massachusetts. But they mentioned that he's a judge in Indiana or whatever. So,
well, the Stranger Things show that's on Netflix now, that's based in Indiana somewhere. What's the Indiana town?
Well, they say it's based in Indiana, but they actually do the filming in Georgia and Mississippi.
Well, I know. I meant the show premise was based in Indiana. Yeah. Not actually filmed here. A lot of high school baseball over the Memorial Day weekend. Sectionals, all the sectional play this weekend. So a lot of action there wherever you are, whether you're in Evansville or Southern Indiana, New Albany, Jeffersonville, Floyd Central area, or Bloomington, all over the state. Baseball moving on to the regional round next week. So that's fun. I mean, high school baseball is fun to watch. It's not too long, 7-inning games. Especially now you get up to these rounds, it's even a little bit better. So get out and watch a high school game now that you can get out. If the high schools are letting you out there, I'm not sure. A League of Their Own was a lot of it filmed down there in Indiana. As a matter of fact, they built a stadium. One of the stadiums they used, they built and they left it there. And where is it? One of you people that's down there in Southwest Indiana, tell me. They built a stadium for some in one of the towns in that area, that southwest part of Indiana. They filmed around, but that was cool. But they filmed at the other one. I think it was I can't remember the name of that daggone stadium.
There's no crying in baseball, right?
Well, there is no crying in baseball, but that's another good sports movie, really, if you want to call it a sports movie, but it is a sports movie. That's a really good one.
Gina Davis, right? Madonna. You had Madam Secretary Taya Leone playing a little first base there for one of the teams.
Taya Leone was in that?
Taya Leone was in it. She had kind of like a little cameo. She wasn't, she didn't have a speaking part, but she was in that. There were so many, Rosie O'Donnell, right? Madonna. You had who else was in that? Petty, what was her name?
Marshall.
Yeah, Petty Marshall directed it. Yeah.
Well, and her dad was in it.
And Gary Marshall. Yeah, I remember. And he had, but Tom Hanks was just
Bossy Field. Yeah. Bossy Field is where they filmed the other. I think that's where I don't know if most of it, but Bossy Field. Yeah. But somebody built another stadium in a town that was like 30 miles away for one of the other teams. And it's still there. And I think the baseball team uses it. I did not know that about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
It's some wild and wacky stuff. Yeah, I covered a lot of great high school baseball down in Florida back in the day. Key West High School, you'd be amazed. Khalil Green went to the major leagues. 1996, they had the #1 ranked team in the country down there. But there's a lot of great high school baseball in this state too. Like a lot of really good players and players that certainly go on to IU. I thought there's a kid up in Noblesville that's going to Vanderbilt that's throwing in the 90s also, right? His name escapes me, but there is definitely a lot of great high school baseball in the state and high school baseball talent in the state for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. There's just too many to go over all of.
Tucker Barnhart, who plays for the Reds, right? He's from Indianapolis, Brownsburg.
So, wow. Providence down south, they must have won. Oh, man, this thing's not sliding around for me. I know my Highlanders won. They beat Jeffersonville to win a sectional for the first time since 2015. So many of them. See, there's Evansville Harrison, Evansville Modern Day. I'm trying to see these. Oh, I can't tell them. Anyway, we'll see. But it was just a great weekend for baseball. High school baseball is always fun. But
no question.
Being out of school, can you imagine if you're playing baseball now, you're high school, your school's out. You've been through this wacky last year, but this is it for you, man. For most of those kids, this is it. They're playing their last. If they're able to go forward, they're playing their last. Some will be playing their last games. Some just did.
Yeah, and imagine just being thankful that maybe you weren't a senior last year and you didn't get to experience all that. And again, we get back to how far we've come in this last year. Or kids that didn't get to go to their senior proms last year, they're going to get to go this year. It's good to see, us getting back to that normalcy. The vaccines are working and people are out and about, and the bars and restaurants in Bloomington are now getting back to full capacity. It's shaping up to be a really good summer, and I think a lot of credit goes to a lot of people around the country and around the state that weathered the storm and did the right things to get us to this point. But I think we're on a really good path right now. right? On a positive, you take a look at the numbers and the trends and so forth, and we're getting healthier as a nation, which certainly is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, getting out and just I talking about the Indianapolis 500 and just seeing that those people just loving being back at a greatest sporting event, and to have it be a good sporting event was fun. So
and we've discussed this before, Jim. Now that you're back at these sporting events, act like an adult. Don't throw things or spit at people or whatever, you know what I mean? And
it's ridiculous.
It's
First of all,
have respect
you ever
for the
spit at
competitor.
somebody or throw something? Why are you throwing? If you're an adult, why are you spitting, period? Why are you throwing? Why are you dumping popcorn?
Yeah.
What is this? It's just utterly ridiculous.
It is. It's a combination of alcohol and rage and people maybe not satisfied with their own lives for sure.
I think Huntingburg, Indiana, is that location Jennifer hit us up on. The ballpark opened in 1894, but was renovated in 1991 for the filming of it, adding additional seating to the park and while maintaining the original grandstand. In 1995, the stadium served as set of Soul of the Game, an HBO movie. So, but it's
the Rockford Peaches, right?
I think that's what was the other? Not the Peaches.
Racine.
I think Racine may have played their home games here. This may have been for the championship when they were playing back and forth. They needed that other stadium look, but it's a pretty cool, man. I'm about to go down and check that thing out. Southwest Indiana, Huntingburg League Stadium's what it's called.
Don't forget Blue Chips was filmed here too. Remember?
Oh yeah. All over. All the gyms. So that was mainly up in Frankfort, Indiana. Mainly those gyms. Frankfort gym. The Rockford Peaches, because they still have the press box picture that says the Rockford Peaches on there. That is just cool, man. Oh my gosh, what a cool looking stadium. Holy cow. That's like going, make sure I'm not missing a break. But we got to take one soon. That's like going to Wrigley Field or, well, I was fortunate to go to Old Comiskey Park. But that was not like going to Riverfront Stadium. When was Riverfront Stadium built?
1970s, right?
No, it'd be like 69, I had to think.
Yeah, well, late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, the carpet.
But you look at places like Wrigley and Comiskey. Well, Comiskey's gone, but Fenway. But, daggone Cincinnati's
didn't Marge shot
was supposed to be a newer stadium. All those cookie cutter stadiums, Philadelphia had one, and they didn't last, man. Didn't have, that was before the advent of suites and how to make money and all that stuff.
Yeah, they were multi-purpose too, because you had the Bengals and the, Reds playing there. And then you had the AstroTurf, and you had, Marge Schott's dog doing her business on the AstroTurf,
Jeez, that was another whole story. Hey, we got to take a break. Indiana Sports Beat back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether I think Chronic Hoosiers in a meeting that he can't get out of.
How much did he talk about the Jerome Hunter stuff last week?
Never enough.
You want to talk more about that?
Absolutely.
Or, some of the stuff that Woodson and, today being the first day of recruiting that, and he talked about.
Do we have any clips about recruiting, John?
Right now, the clips I was going to use were the football stuff that Kevin was talking about earlier, and then the bad behavior in fan sports.
Well, but we passed that, so you got to tell us when we're talking about that you have a clip for that, because now we're not.
Oh, no. I don't have like a. Never mind. I thought you meant like, do I have clips to be posted? No, I don't have a clip to be played on air. I don't have.
Well,
that.
I mean, for basketball from last week's, it's just from last.
You mean from the press conference?
Yeah, we can take a
Sorry.
different one.
Let me see what we have.
Anything about recruiting?
I'm trying to think what we didn't use.
I'm going to write about that today, actually.
The portal.
Did you use the Jerome
anything
Hunter
about
one last week?
What?
Did you use the one with Jerome Hunter last week?
It doesn't matter. Use it again. If we did, it doesn't.
That's fine.
We're going to be talking about it.
We got that then for Jerome Hunter. If you want to use that,
let's use that.
Sounds good.
Because we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Cool. It's already loaded up, so whenever you call for it, I can click on it.
Beautimus. What are you doing today?
Me?
You.
I'm going to write. Well, I have a story I'm going to work on, and then just maybe get to the gym, just kind of relax. Yeah. Why? What are you doing?
Nada.
You going to go down to
being
yoga?
worked on. My car's being worked on. I hit a deer a while back. My car is getting worked on. I don't have a vehicle right now.
Oh, jeez. Sorry to hear. When did you hit the deer? What, on the way back to?
It wasn't too far from right here.
Is that new? You're doing ads. Is that new restaurant good by the Point or no?
Psalms?
Yeah, is the food good?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go up there one day this week.
They're in Indianapolis too, though.
Yeah. Maybe we can grab dinner up there one day or something.
Everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Looking at a photo posted over the weekend by Tyrone Bates Sr. at the front of the sample gates. Caption our new home. So, Tamar Bates ready to get started.
Yeah, they're the basketball players are coming in. I think this month here, right, for the first week, and
it's starting to be scattered out. I think the last one to arrive will be Miller Kopp because he won't be able to get here until the 12th.
Yep. But, Mike Woodson talked about, being able to get on the floor and finally work with these guys. And he's pretty, certainly very fired up about that, about implementing what he wants to do, both offensively and defensively. And, some interesting comments from that presser last week, and particularly about Jerome Hunter as well. Certainly about what led to his decision to leave and end up at Xavier.
You know what I loved about it most? The best thing about that was the complete transparency, complete honesty. You don't see that from many coaches. The only coaches you see that from are older, veteran coaches.
Yeah.
Who know that this is not about, you have to, there's certain things that you shouldn't say. I get that. But not saying a lot of things is worse. And he's, Izzo or Woody, he's been in the pros. He's like, dude, he's dealing with the media. He's meeting with the media. He's talking to the media. First of all, he knows that that's important. It's beneficial. But he's also honest and straightforward. And you just don't get that a lot. And that is so refreshing. Let's roll the clip, John. This is about Jerome Hunter and why he's leaving.
I guess kind of speaking of shooting, I wanted to ask about, I guess, what happened with Jerome Hunter. I know you had a statement about that, but I wanted to see if you could tell us any more about just what led to his departure and what do you think it costs you, losing another guy that's sort of a bigger wing that can shoot.
Well, again, I won't get deep into this because I like keeping stuff like that in house. We decided to part ways, and he landed on his feet in Xavier, so I'm very excited about that. talking about shooting, I mean, he was a guy that could make it, but his percentage didn't show that. And we didn't mix the way I think I wanted it to be between he and I. And that's no knock against him, because I think he's an excellent kid. And, we decided to part ways, and he understood, and I understood, and he left here and still landed on his feet at Xavier. So all I can wish him is nothing but the best. And we got to worry about, the guys that we have in our uniform as we move forward.
There you go. That's about as honest as you can get. And it's basically saying, hey, man, it's a different philosophy, which I was a little surprised because there was obviously things not going well between him and Archie Miller, which things weren't going well between anyone and Archie Miller. But I thought that may be a second opportunity for him. But the more important thing that he said was, he talked about his shooting, and he says the percentages don't show it. I mean, you never get a coach that is that honest. It just says he's not doing the job, or he wasn't doing the job to the standard that we need, that he needs. And that is gigantic because, again, that is setting a bar that Indiana is going to be here. This is going to be where the bar is, and you have to do that. And he did exactly that.
Yeah, accountability, I think, which is really big. And it was kind of funny looking at that. We're in the Zoom world now, that Zoom clip, right? It looked like Hollywood Squares. I was waiting for like Paul Lind or something to pop up, but no, but getting back to Jerome, yeah, if you remember with even a few years ago when I first started on the beat, I remember it was viewed as such this big story when it was announced that he was going to get back on the court again, and obviously the leg issue sent him back. But the expectations for this guy, remember, 4-star from Pickering, Ohio, this was supposed to be a guy that was a program changer, right, for Archie Miller, like this wing that could come in, and he was multidimensional, he could score, and it just never really clicked. And who knows how much that leg condition really set him back ultimately.
Nothing matters
with regards to his Indiana career, but for whatever reason it didn't materialize. He certainly couldn't defend at the level where Archie could trust him, and the shooting, never got to the point where he had his moments, right? And particularly this past season where he showed he could be like a 6-man offensive spark off the bench, but he never got to that point where he could really be, an impact guy. And I think Mike Woodson saw that in the tape. And I think too, you bring in a guy like Miller Kopp who can stretch the defense. He's probably a little bit more of a consistent shooter, a higher percentage 3-point shooter, 36% for his career. And that's an upgrade at that position. And what are you going to do with 2 6'7" wings that are, pretty much the same? And plus, Miller Kopp can shoot free throws better too.
Well, I think they've upgraded in the 2 positions that Armaan Franklin and Jerome Hunter specifically. They upgraded both of those positions. They've increased output. They've increased efficiency. They've increased everything. And they're better off. And I think it was, I don't want to say a mistake by Armaan Franklin, but I don't know if he was afraid to try to work in a different system, or I don't want to say afraid, but working more in a pack line system is not going to help you get anywhere. That is not going to elevate your status in any way. I don't understand what he thinks he's going to get there, which that's fine. I'm not questioning his judgment. I'm just saying, I'm wondering what in the world, if he wants to go to the next level, is he going to get at Virginia under that system versus what he had here? I think it was maybe didn't want to change. I don't know. I'll guess.
I want to learn maybe a new defense, but I thought Armaan showed growth. And listen, I was very skeptical of Armaan when he first came in as a freshman in terms of like his shooting percentage and what he did as a freshman. If you remember, I mean, he really struggled other than the games at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and he showed a lot of growth as a sophomore. And I thought that was that. If there's the one blow, I think was losing Armand. If they could have really convinced Armand to stay, I think they could have had something. But in terms of a two guard, but you bring in a guy that's Xavier Johnson who's averaging 15 a game. You don't know how it's going to translate into Big Ten, but I thought Armand had his moments this past season in terms of, you look at that Iowa game, the game-winning shot, he could create his own shot a little bit. But was he truly a difference maker when you take a look at the totality of it? No, because they were 12 and 15. And I think that's ultimately the thing is that you didn't have the winning. I think Michael Durr, the guy that they got for Jerome, I think it's just interesting too, because, we get back to the Miller Kopp and Jerome Hunter being the same guy. You get rid of, Jerome Hunter leaving, and now you bring in Michael Durr, who's a 7-footer, who gives you size, who gives you some rebounding, and will take a little pressure off Race Thompson and Trace. And you're going to have a bigger team. And I think that's going to play well in the Big Ten too, because you got to have guys that match up with Hunter Dickinson. You got to have guys that match up with Kofi Coburn. And if you can have another, big body like that, I think that's only going to help down the road.
Absolutely. It's going to be a completely different style next year, completely different offense, different defense, different everything.
Yeah.
So
if you recall when Mike and his, Zoom presser last week, when he talked about defense, he talked about finishing off the possessions too and rebounding and being able to get the ball back up court quickly. And that's what you need. You need that. And certainly Trace has shown that he's an elite rebounder in the Big Ten, but you can never have enough of it. Trust me. I mean, it's good to have another big guy as well who could come in. And Joey Brunk, I thought 2 years ago, served that role pretty well. Remember, he had like 14 rebounds in that game against Notre Dame. He had his moments where he banged on the boards, and I think they missed a little bit of that last year. They weren't nearly as good of a rebounding team last year as they were 2 years ago. And maybe you bring in a guy like Durr to go with Race and to go with Trace, you're going to have a little bit more of that physicality and rebounding that you need.
Chris says he thinks there will be situational starters, and that's very possible because this is not the one script deal anymore. These are coaches that understand you're playing different teams that have different strengths and different personnel. So you're going to have to do different things, whether that's offensively or defensively sometimes, to make adjustments. We'll see how that goes. I think that starters are going to be earned. I mean, I think that that's going to be like any other place, any other sport. You earn your spot and it can be beat out. That's not how it had been for the last couple of years, but I think that's for different reasons. But
you could see a rotation of, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a rotation of 7 or 8 different guys.
Minimum.
Trace is, I think you think Trace and Race are probably going to get their minutes, but I could see the other 6 or 7 guys in the rotation being spread out 20 minutes a game, not necessarily a 30-minute, and doing it that way as well.
Yeah, and people are talking about Trace Jackson Davis and his numbers, and I've seen some people, and I'm like, dude, his numbers will go down. If his numbers don't go down, I'm going to be shocked because of what is around him. There is a lot more around him that can do things that he did not have. A lot more scores, a lot more type of scores, getting to the rim, on the wing, slashing, shooting from 3. There is a lot more opportunity for Indiana to score, and it's going to give Trace Jackson Davis other opportunities. But I mean, I would be shocked if his numbers don't go down.
And if you remember last year, Trace and Race and Armand Franklin, when he was healthy, too, and Archie, played a little bit of a shorter rotation last year. And what happened in the last 5 minutes of games when you really need a basket from Trace? He didn't have his legs. He couldn't finish. He couldn't get the big rebound because he was dog tired, because you're riding him 33, 34, 35 minutes a game. I think that, there's something to be said for that too. You can, if you can have a team that's deeper now, you've got 13 scholarship slots filled. You might have guys, you can play guys where you have guys with gas in the tank here in the last 5 minutes a game when it's, when you're in the win zone. How many close games did we see Indiana slip away because of a missed free throw, because of a missed box out at the end of the game, overtime. And so many of these games in the Big Ten come down to that. And usually it's the team that's fresher and the team that's deeper that finds a way to win, as well as having a guy who can create his own shot at the end of the game too.
The recruiting deadline, it's over. Guys are out, coaches are out, seeing players, visits are scheduled. I threw up something earlier that I think it was Tim put up that 8. There are 8 scheduled visits, I think, for Indiana in June. 8 basketball recruits scheduled to visit to IU here June, with 5 more as a possibility. That's my gosh. Basketball recruiting is so difficult. Football, you're going to need numbers, so you can just recruit. But man,
But I thought it was interesting what Mike said about that too, about because right now you've got 13 scholarships filled for this class, and then one obviously CJ Gunn. But he said, "Look, I'm going to keep getting commitments, and we're gonna keep this thing going. And sometimes you got to recruit over people and create that level of competition and create that level of where we're gonna bring guys in and keep this thing going here for the future. We're not going to lay back."
Well, Mike, what he said, that there's forget about recruiting, because we're going to recruit the best players. I mean, you're going to be competing all the time, and I think that's a change that the kids are going to have to get used to. They want it. You can't have everything your way. They're getting everything else. So yeah, that recruiting over. They used to be coaches that would say, "All right, we won't recruit over you here," but that's before you had the guys that could transfer in like this or out like that. That could change your entire roster. So you don't have that luxury anymore. They have to continue to recruit everything they need or that they think they're going to need. So yeah, that being recruited over, you can forget about that. That's just a life of this sport now, or all of college athletics.
Billy Donovan used to have a line at Florida. There's always a scholarship. You can always find a way to open a scholarship, and coaches do that more than you think. Trust me.
Tony says his hopes are that Trace Jackson Davis's numbers are equal to last year, but a little more efficient, getting 20 points and 12 shots and 10 free throw attempts, and not 20 shots and 18 free throw attempts. He's going to have to tighten up his efficiency is not good. And he's going to have to tighten that up because he's not going to get as many opportunities. I'm telling you, he's not going to get as many opportunities because you have other people that are shooting the ball, that it's going to go in the hoop, so there won't be a rebound. And there's going to be guys that are going to the rim that are whatever. It's going to be different. This is not a boring setup, Harlem Globetrotter weave out front and then try to throw it inside to Trace Jackson Davis with 2 seconds on the shot clock. This is going to be a completely different set.
And Xavier Johnson is going to be a key to that too, because I think if you have a penetrating point guard that can dish him the ball and get him the ball where he can finish on dunks and on easier layups than what we've seen in Archie's offense, if that can materialize, I think that's going to help his efficiency as well. Easier shots at the rim set up by your guards.
Absolutely. And but it's now a roster that is, you said 7 or 8 deep. I think it's deeper than that. You can take those 4 freshmen, move them down. And that's 7 or 8. You could do that without any of those 4 freshmen. With what has been brought in. But I'm not saying that they're not going to be a part of that. Now, how much are they going to be a part? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Christian Lander, how much was he able to learn from these other guys? That'll be a major part of this. Anthony Leal, he's got to start creating a shot and hitting that shot. Trey Galloway has got to find a place. He's got to find a purpose. I don't know what his purpose is right now. He's not a guard. He's not a shooter. So I think he's going to end up being the odd man out. I don't see him staying here for 4 years because of the type of change and the caliber of players that are going to continue to come here. I think, and I don't mean this as to be cutting on him, but I think the talent is just going to be too much better. It's going to be more elite. I didn't see a whole lot from him last year. I didn't see a whole lot of future.
Non-conference wise, I thought he was pretty well going the basket, but it didn't necessarily translate to the Big Ten once he saw different defenses. But and I think he could fill a role as a defender too, because he's got the body, he's got the size to do that. And he can dish and create a little bit, but certainly his shooting was a big problem. He just could not find this. And I think once the book got out on him that you could sag off him, then the penetrating wasn't as effective because, he didn't have that aspect of his game. I think that was a big issue with Trey. And I think that's, again, the shooting, and Anthony Leal, I think that's going to be a big X factor for him. If he shows that he could be that Jordan Hulls type shooter from Bloomington South, then you might have a shot.
Yep. Well, it's been a great one, man. Our first day moving back to 2 hours. I forgot, to be honest with you. John, the producer, had to say, hey, we got to go. So we got to go. But it's always fun when we have Kevin Brockway on. We can talk all day. When Mike DeCourcy's on, we can talk all day. So we did. We had fun. We'll be back tomorrow doing it again. We'll see who all is going to be on with us. And Kyle Nedrup, Bob Kravitz for sure. And we'll get caught up on high school baseball and the Indy 5, everything else that's going on. I hope you go out and have a great day. Kevin, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. It was fun being here.
Appreciate you. And thank you to everybody else. Without you, there is nothing for us to do. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Come back tomorrow. We'll be here. Make sure you sign up at Indiana Sports Beat Radio at YouTube. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.